All right, hello everybody and welcome to today's live stream. I would love it if you guys could confirm in the chat that you can see me and hear me, and then we can dive in. It's really lovely to see so many familiar names and faces in the chat. Got people from Prague and Germany, California, Oregon, Finland, the UK, Belgium. Wow, this is amazing. Cape Town. All right, thanks, Rosalind. Oh, Monique from New South Wales, you are up early. Wow, thank you for tuning in. All right, so today we have roughly 1 week left for making Christmas gifts. And so we're gonna look at some really fast, easy, accessible things that we can make in the nick of time. So let's change our scene here. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. Fancy. Oh no, wait. Over here. It's over here. All right. So workshop overview. We're going to start by looking at some really easy single ingredient gift ideas. Basically, it doesn't get any easier than that. We're then going to make my favorite, last minute giftable DIYs. There are many things that I do love to gift, but when we are, 1 week away from a giftable occasion or less, this is the one that I always turn to. While we wait for that to melt, we're going to chat about some of the gifting best practices that I have learned in the decade plus that I've been doing this. We'll look at some of my top cleanup tips because I don't want you to do this and then, if this is new to you and think, gosh, what a messy pain in the patoot. I never want to do that again. And then we're going to wrap up with a live Q&A. So, hooray! So yeah, ever since I did last month's live shampoo bar workshop, I've really been wanting to do another one of these lives. I got this whole setup figured out, and it's pretty cool and fancy. Hey, it's still getting a hang of it clearly, but I want to do more of these, more lives. They're really fun and such a lovely way to connect with you guys, and yeah. So this is. I'm stoked to be here, and I'm glad that you guys are here too. So a quick introduction. Hi, that's me. I'm Marie. I run Humble Bee and Me, so both this YouTube channel and my website, humblebeeandme.com, and I've been formulating since 2011. So I am currently taking a break from long form videos. I have still been releasing shorts, and so I've been working on a few things while I've been taking that break. I've been working on updating my DIY for Beginners little mini course. So that's something I first started offering all the way back in 2016. Over 165,000 people signed up for it in the time that I offered it. But I've learned a lot since then. I've come a long way, and I was like, I should make this better. So you can now sign up for the waiting list for the new version. It's taking longer than I thought it was. Optimism, man. But you can find a link for the waiting list for that in the description box below this video if you would like to join that waiting list. I have also been doing lots of formulating, experimenting, exploring, researching, just taking the time to do stuff that's brand new, working with brand new ingredients, doing things that I'm not sure will work because I don't need to have them in a video sometime in the near future. And that's just been so lovely. I'm really finding my joy again, and it's absolutely great. So these photos are just kind of some kind of behind the scenes shots of some of the things that I have been working on. And then I also use some of this time to create and release my very first live digital workshop. So it's the shampoo bar workshop, all about shampoo bars, how to formulate your own using ingredients you can get, how to troubleshoot them, adjust them for your hair type. It was so fun. It's got just amazing reviews. The reception has been just absolutely heartwarming. and I'm really, really proud of it. So I want to do more of those workshops in the future. I would love to hear what you'd like to see a workshop on. And if you would like to check out the replay for the workshop, you can like buy it right now and get instant access. There's a link for that in the description box too. And then something else I've been doing is spending lots of time on Patreon with my wonderful patrons, sharing exclusive videos and updates. So last week we did our monthly live ingredient list analysis. So this is something we do every month. I have my patrons kind of help me choose a product. Sometimes I'll ask for suggestions. Sometimes I'll kind of put up a poll of some things that I've kind of caught my eye that I've been curious about. We choose a product, and so this month it was Neil's Yard Remedies Frankincense Intense Age Defying Cream. And we go through the ingredient list and we break it down live. We research everything that's in it, and then we create a starter dupe formulation using ingredients that we can get. And that was really, really fun. And then tomorrow evening is the second office hours of December 2023. So every month, my office hours tier patrons are invited to two. Basically, it's just like there's 2 of them a month, and it's like, come hang out with me on Zoom, bring your questions. If you want to like show anything you're working on, we'd love to have that. It's just I don't really have any friends in my real life who are passionate about this, so I selfishly love these sessions because it's like I just get to hang out with a bunch of DIY friends and like drink tea and chat about formulating, but it's also, a great way to get answers for your questions and stuff. And it's really, really fun. So if any of that sounds good to you, there's a link to my Patreon in the description box below as well. And yes, my patrons get a lot of photos of my dog. Who is it? Yeah, that's Lottie. She's looking extra cute. So we are gonna get into it now. And change the scene. All right. So we're going to start with some super, super simple 1 ingredient gift ideas. And so these are especially good if you do already have some ingredients and packaging on hand in your stash. So my first suggestion is kind of stolen straight from Sephora. It's using a single oil and kind of repackaging it, repurposing it, marketing it to your friends and family, shall we say, as a fancy, all-natural moisturizer. And so Sephora sells these for a fortune. Some of my favorites, they sell argan oil. Josie Moran does, sold through Sephora. 66 Canadian dollars for 50 milliliters. Or you can buy it from a DIY store for about $14 for 125 milliliters. Tarte sells passion fruit oil, $65 for 50 mils, which is less than 2 fluid ounces. Or you can buy about 120 milliliters of it, like 4 fluid ounces, for about 12 Canadian dollars from a DIY supplier. You can get squalane. This one is olive squalane rather than hemisqualane, but the notes I have here are for hemisqualane, which Biossance sells. They charge $46 for 100 milliliters of product. You can buy 120 milliliters of product for about $18 from a DIY supplier. And then I've saved the best for last. So Drunk Elephant sells 1 fluid ounce, 30 milliliters of marula oil for 92 Canadian dollars. You can spend $24 and get 473 milliliters of it. So that is roughly 16 times more oil for just over 1/4 of that price. So there are lots of other oils to choose from, of course, and you can learn more about them, what they're like, what they might, what sorts of skin they might be good for, their characteristics in the free Humblebee and Me encyclopedia over on my website. So really, we're just gonna take some of these oils and put them in a smaller bottle. Then we're gonna pop a label on it. And we're gonna, sort of you wanna include some instructions and kind of tell your friends, hey, put a few drops in your palm and glide it over your face at the end of your skincare routine, or, work it through your hair. Yeah, so some suggestions for small bottles. I'll change our camera angle here. You're probably going to be looking at something between 10 to 30 milliliters. So this is about 10 milliliters, or like 1/3 of a fluid ounce. Oh, there is a half. I did have a half one, but I put it away. This is 1 ounce, and this one is 2 ounces. So generally, kind of this is a good size. These like 10 to 30 mils for this sort of gift, especially if you're not really sure if your recipient is familiar with this kind of idea. That's a good place to kind of start to ease them in. Now, if you don't have appropriate bottles on hand, you can buy this sort of thing on Amazon really quite easily, you know, because we are talking about last minute here. We don't have a ton of time. I do love DIY specialty suppliers, but Amazon's shipping is typically faster. Now, I will say, if you don't already have some nice kind of fancy oils on hand, probably pass on this idea. Amazon is good for some sorts of ingredients, or is okay for some sorts of ingredients, but for these fancier oils, I would have my doubts about their freshness and their purity unless you are familiar with this specific brand that you are buying, and you will probably pay quite a lot more to get them there as well. Now, right, I did want to say, there are definitely cities that you have in city, like you can select pickup and then you can go get it, and then you are off to the races. So in Calgary, we have a few. I know Vancouver's got Voyager Soap and Candle, and Toronto has at least one. I didn't check all of them, but you know, there are definitely options. So depending on what city you're in, you might be in luck. But yes, generally, most places don't have such a store, but you might have just hit the jackpot. All right, and I do recommend for gifting, especially since this is for the face, leave it unscented, just because you're not really sure what your recipient might like or might react to, what their skin might like. So I'm going to do some marula oil and some squalane for some particular people in my life that I love. And I did want to say, this bottle of rosehip oil is from Plants Power, beautiful Canadian supplier, and I just checked today, and they do in-store pickup as well. So, hooray. All right, so we've got our little bottles, and I'm just going to do this with pipettes. You could also use a funnel. Didn't really trust myself with a funnel, if we're being honest. Now, I do recommend something that has like a dropper bottle. You could also do something with a treatment pump cap, which is one of these little ones here. It's just like a little mini pump. So that can also work well, but this distributes a lot more product. Like a full pump of product can be kind of more than you might want. So I like the dropper cap for this. So we'll start with some squalane. If you do have vitamin E, tocopherol, you can add that to help delay the onset of rancidity. You're generally aiming for about 0.5%, which is probably somewhere around 5-ish drops for this much oil. That's very, very loose. Fortunately, with the vitamin E, we're not really worried about having too much of it. It's not like an essential oil where counting drops could be really a bit dangerous. Pop that on there. There, one down. The fastest DIY you've ever seen. I do keep these fancier oils in my formulating mini fridge, which is just a mini fridge that I bought that I keep in my laundry room in the basement because that's where there's room for it, to extend their shelf lives. And sometimes you will find, depending on the oil, when you pull them out of the fridge, they will have sort of solidified a bit and sedimented. So I pulled these oils out of my fridge last night to give them a chance to warm up, but the marula oil did end up needing to be put in just a warm water bath to fully get everything to re-melt and incorporate. And then we gotta label these. So I've had these printed up from, it was Sticker Mule. So we've got one that's olive squalane and one that is marula oil. Now if you had like a Cricut type machine, you could have so much fun with these. I don't have one, but I do sort of want one. Now an idea, if you have oil on the outside of these, which I do, you're gonna wanna wipe that off, otherwise your labels won't stick. Oil destroys adhesive. So this is just isopropyl alcohol, kind of misting that on a paper towel and just wiping these off. I will say I'm not really paying attention to the live chat right now because I've just got a lot to juggle to keep this thing running. So if you do have questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat now and maybe somebody else will answer them for you. But we will be doing Q&A at the end. And so you'll have a chance to ask your questions then. Right, the labels, I put them away, goodness. Okay, I'm gonna have to check and see. Okay, that one's amber, so that's the marula oil. Oh goodness, and that one's clear, so that's our squalane. Good thing I chose oils with different colors. All right, squalane, marula oil. And then for our last step, just got a bit of packing tape here to protect the writing. So I sure find Sharpie comes off of these stickers if it gets oil on it, which it almost certainly will in the lifetime of the product. So there you go. If you bought this marula oil from Drunk Elephant, it would cost you like $30-something per milliliter. So hooray. We're going to hop back to the slides, and I've got there a list of some of my favorite serum oils for you to note down or screen capture while I do a bit of shuffling for the next part. And before we get into the next part, I did also make a note, when you're looking to kind of make up a little instruction sheet for your friends and family, it's also a really good idea to check out and see how the brands that sell these oils are suggesting you use them. You can borrow some of their ideas to suggest to your friends and family for what to do with your gifts. And let's hop back to our, oh no, we're making now. We're making stuff. Okay, so our next idea is more or less this, but we're gonna do it with cheaper oils and bigger bottles, and we're gonna call it a massage oil or a body oil. So we've got lots of great options. I've pulled out a couple here. We have almond oil, sunflower oil, rice bran oil, also apricot kernel oil would be lovely. Plum kernel oil, depending on kind of how much you've paid for it. That can be really nice. It's got a really beautiful marzipan-y scent to it, which is lovely. So yeah, this one's very, very easy, and I would be using kind of a larger bottle. This one's like a 100 ml, and this one's a 2 ounce. This one's also a 2 ounce. So that's kind of a good size for this gift. Generally, you're going to want to choose an oil that is really mid-ish in absorption speed, because we want it to have some working time on the skin for massage. If you wanted to call it a body oil, you could lean more into those lighter oils. Just avoid anything that's really kind of strongly scented in a food way. So not olive oil, like an extra virgin olive oil. Your friends will be like, I don't want to put salad dressing on myself. So I would skip the olive oil, and like castor oil, for instance, which was very, very sticky. I would avoid that. And if you have an oil on hand, you're like, would this make a good massage oil? Just put like half a teaspoon of it in your palm, and then, you'll figure it out pretty fast. Now, something you will want to do, you really want to make sure you're choosing a bottle with some sort of like flow or orifice reducer. So these treatment pump caps here are good for massage, because you can just and then apply, well, warm it up first between your palms and then apply. Whereas a dropper top would be kind of annoying if you were using it in a massage setting. You can also do something that has like a flip top, a disc top, even an orifice reducer where you can just kind of shake it into your hand. So you really don't want your recipient to have that just very unpleasant experience of like, oh, that's so much oil. You want them to have a good experience, so give them a cap that's going to make their lives easier. Now, I will say these types of oils are typically a pretty safe thing to order from Amazon or even pick up at the grocery store. You will typically pay more than you would from a DIY specialty supplier. And then if you are buying nut oils at the grocery store, I probably wouldn't, because they are treated differently. Like they're often usually roasted and toasted for optimum flavor, but then you do end up with a massage oil that smells like toasted walnuts or something, which does not sound bad, but it is different than what you would get with a cosmetic grade oil. So I'm not going to bottle one of these up. I think you guys got a hang of that previously. So I'm just going to switch to my list of oils for this purpose while we do a little bit more shuffling. All right, so our next and final single ingredient gift idea is cocoa butter. I love many, many butters, but I do really just keep coming back to cocoa butter. I feel like it's very underappreciated. Like a lot of people buy shea butter first, and then often it seems like don't pick up cocoa butter until they have a specific reason to, and this is your reason if you don't have any. So unrefined cocoa butter has my heart forever because it smells like chocolate. It smells wonderfully, wonderfully of chocolate. And it is really what I recommend you buy unless you're not very fond of the smell of chocolate. It's a good idea to have both. They do both have their uses, but the unrefined stuff, oh, swoon. It's wonderful. So cocoa butter has, switch cameras here, like a brittle butter, very similar in hardness to like a nice dark chocolate. And it has a melting point that makes it really lovely for rubbing on the skin. It melts kind of right around body temperature. Part of the reason chocolate is such a delicious food as well. And so it makes a really nice, easy body butter bar, especially. I chose a really tiny chunk here because obviously this is not going back into my ingredient supply now that I've been rubbing it on myself. But you can, like when you buy it in raw chunks, it does come in bigger bits like this, and even bigger. These I've actually kind of broken up with my with a chopping knife here. And then you can also buy it in kind of these little pastille type pellets. These are refined, which is why they're a little bit more white than this golden cocoa butter. So my favorite cocoa butter, which is this cocoa butter, is from Baraka. So they're on Vancouver Island near Duncan in British Columbia. And if you are near there, they also do like pickup, so you can place an order and pick it up. They've got also stunning coconut oil, and they do food grade cocoa butter and cocoa powder. So if you were doing some like baking, absolutely gorgeous. And their shea butter is really, really lovely as well. And it's just such a great company. So I really love them. And you can use code HUMBLEBEE to save 10%. And that is an affiliate code. So full disclosure there. But yeah, highly recommend you got to check these guys out. If you aren't within like driving distance of Baraka or another DIY supplier that does pickup, a lot of grocery stores will sell cocoa butter. In the baking aisle, you will be paying more money for it than you would be if you're ordering it cosmetic grade, but that is a great option. And you can usually get this on Amazon, and this is a pretty safe ingredient to order from Amazon. So you can gift your cocoa butter kind of just like as it comes, like this. But if you want to kind of step it up, you can gently melt it and then pour it into a mold, and a measuring cup is a super, super easy mold. And what I recommend doing is choosing a mold that'll make it easy to package the final bar. Because if you give like a lump of cocoa butter or any body butter bar naked, as it lightly melts in use and then cools down, it tends to pick up a lot of lint and hair and start looking really, really gross. So I really like a tin more than a bag as well, because it does kind of tend to get stuck to the inside of the bag and then you have to like peel it out. So I like a tin for this purpose. And if you think ahead, you can match it like that. So you'll just gently melt the cocoa butter. You can use a water bath or the microwave, pour it into a mold of choice, put it in the fridge or freezer to set up, or if it's cold where you are, on your back porch. Just make sure it's not going to get snow in it. And then once it's solid, you can turn it out, pop it in your tin. Ta-da! Super, super easy cocoa butter body butter bar. And that is it for our single ingredient gift. So I'm just going to put this stuff away, and then we are going to make something. Now, I did see somebody earlier saying they wanted to see the slide of serum oils again, so I'll switch to that while I set up. All right, so we're gonna make lip balm. This to me is just like the perfect last minute giftable DIY. I love it as a gift for a lot of reasons. It's got a nice long shelf life. It is a pretty durable thing. If somebody just kind of chucks it in their purse or whatever, it's got a nice long life that way. Makes it tends to really get used because most people already use lip balm. So unlike with a facial oil, you kind of have to include instructions and kind of encourage them to add it into a part of their life, a part of their skincare routine that they might not already have. Lip balm, most people use this already. So you're just sort of like, here's a version of something that you are familiar with, but it's better. So hooray. It's also quite expensive to buy and so cheap to make. Like you will spend more, like the tubes cost more money than the product that goes into it. People are used to paying $5 to $7 for a tube of lip balm, and you can make a tube of lip balm for something like 35 cents, depending on where you buy your ingredients. And like a tube of lip balm is 4.5 grams. So you think about how long that lasts, but how little product that is. It's a great, great gift. People, like most of my friends, will sort of come to me and be like, Maria, I've run out of lip balm. My birthday's coming up. I was like, yes, you're doing something right when you get comments like that. And then from like a last minute gifting point of view, you don't need many ingredients. The ingredients that you do need are pretty easy to get, often at places like health food stores and like local grocery stores if you don't have them on hand already. And as much as I don't really love Amazon for buying ingredients, these ingredients I do more or less trust them with. So today we're going to make a batch of one of my all-time favorite lip balms. I call it my naked lip balm because it gets its scent from the base ingredients rather than essential oils. And so you're just going to need 4 ingredients. And so the first 3 ingredients are where the scent comes from. So our first one is beeswax. And I recommend like raw honey scented beeswax. This one is in pellets. It does have a bit of a scent. It's not as strong as like a raw one from a local apiary. But since we're melting this live, I chose the nice tiny pellets because these will melt a little bit more cooperatively than the kind of big chunks that I end up carving off of a huge brick of beeswax. You'll need virgin coconut oil, which smells wonderfully of coconut. So if you have this in your kitchen already, you can just use that. This is from Baraka. It's their traditional coconut oil, and it smells even more coconutty than virgin coconut oil, and it's just fabulous. And then lastly, my beloved cocoa butter. So again, we want unrefined cocoa butter that smells wonderfully of chocolate. And then for the scent, we end up with honey, coconut, and cocoa, and it's just great. And then lastly, you need like a mid-ish weight inexpensive liquid oil. This is not a very particular ingredient for this formulation. So I'm using sweet almond oil, but sunflower oil, safflower oil, apricot kernel oil, all really good choices. Don't overthink this, but also like don't use olive oil or any other oil with really strong flavor or scent unless you think it would go well with this sort of setup. Yeah, we want to let these ingredients shine, and olive oil chocolate lip balm doesn't sound very nice to me. So making lip balm is really, really easy. We're just gonna like combine everything in here and then melt it and then pour it into tubes. It's great. The hardest part is cleaning up, but I'm gonna be sharing all my top tips for making the cleanup process an absolute breeze once we get there. So absolutely, no worries. I'm gonna pull up the formulation here on a slide. Yeah. So I'm gonna be making the naked version today, but if you wanna make the cocoa mint variation, if you already have vitamin E and peppermint essential oil on hand, be my guest. It's just delightful as well. Throwing peppermint into this mix is chef's kiss. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Oh, I also do have a lot of other free lip balm formulations on my website if you're looking for other options. So if you're looking for a vegan option, if you are looking for just really like any other option, like a tinted option, one with a bit of shimmer. I have so many lip balm formulations over on humblebeeandme.com. So if you click in the main menu underneath, I believe it's like the face section, there's just like a whole section of lip balm formulations, including a Burt's Bees style dupe, which has a pretty similar ingredient list that is lovely, absolutely lovely. So yeah, check those out if if this suite of ingredients doesn't meet your needs. I will say that for the beeswax, it's got quite a particular skin feel that's quite nice and creamy. Hard to match that with plant-based waxes. So when you look at my vegan lip balm formulations, you'll see that they are structured a little bit differently to try to get some of that creaminess in a different way. So, making. Let's start making. Yeah. So the first thing that you would do is weigh out your ingredients, but I have already done that to save us a bit of time. So you will need 10 grams of beeswax. So this container here, in a little Pyrex style measuring cup, my favorite thing to make lip balm in. Up next, 12 grams coconut oil. So the major bonuses of it, we have a pouring spout. This makes life so much easier when we are pouring the lip balm into tubes. It's a pretty small target, so having a pouring spout is very, very useful. 7 grams cocoa butter. And then it's a fairly thick glass. It's heavier than beakers. And so that keeps the mixture warm and therefore pourable for longer. So this just generally makes life easier. And then lastly, 21 grams of your liquid oil. I'm using sweet almond oil. Now to weigh out these ingredients, you will need a digital scale if you don't already have one. This is something that you can also pick up on Amazon pretty inexpensively if you are a newer maker and you don't want to invest a bunch of money. But You will get a better scale if you spend more money. And I've linked to a bunch of my favorites and a bunch of different price points in the equipment section of the Humblebee and Me encyclopedia. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, so there's that. And then to melt, I've already got a preheated water bath here. Pretty much just gonna do that. This can obviously be your stovetop. You want the water to be kind of like steaming hot. You can see it starting to condense, like get a little bit of steaminess condensing on the side here. We've got some bubbles along the side. It's been just lightly steaming. So this is gonna take a little wee while. So I have an activity planned for us. You can do this in the microwave if you have to, but I really prefer this way in large part because it heats up the glass nicely as well, and that makes life so much easier when it comes to pouring. So try it my way. I think you'll like it. So, while that melts, we're going to talk about sort of some gifting best practices. And of course, caveat, like, you know the people that you're giving things to best. So, take this advice with a grain of salt, but, here's some things that I've kind of learned the hard way through experience. The first one is to give familiar but better versions of stuff people already use. So, it's already part of their life and their rituals, their habits, and so they can just swap your product in and then it will get used. So this is why lip balm is so awesome, but other things that are great are hand wash, body wash, bath bombs, and hand and body lotions. Just when there's a learning curve, it's just kind of it's an impediment to actually using the product. I also recommend erring on the side of light and fast absorbing. So when I first started making, I think like many people, I started with primarily anhydrous products, and I gifted quite a few anhydrous body butters. And I will say they never got like a bad reception. I do remember giving my mom one and asking later, and she's like, well, it's quite greasy, which was a kind understatement on her part. So thinking about kind of the reception I get for lotions and emulsions that I give out these days, the emulsions get a much warmer reception. Of course, you know your friends and family best, but yeah, mine at least, much prefer emulsified products. And just really remember that if somebody is familiar with, like if all their skincare moisturizing experiences with things like Lubriderm and St. Ives and the Body Shop's body butters or from Bath and Body Works, those are all emulsified products that are pretty lightweight and non-greasy. So if they're used to using that and then you give them something that's like 100% oil and butter, it's gonna be way heavier than what they are used to, and they might not like it. I also recommend being extra thoughtful about who you gift whipped body butters to, because they're gorgeous and they're sumptuous and they're soft and fluffy, and the temptation is to go in and take a huge scoop of it because it's soft and it looks like frosting. And so if your recipient is not used to 100% fat gifts, if they're used to an emulsified body butter, and then they're gonna feel greased up like that sort of butter stuffed Christmas turkey. So just think about who you're giving it to and if they'll really like believe you when you say this is really rich and a little goes a long way. I often just, if I'm giving someone something anhydrous, I'll make it like a harder thing, a balm or body butter bar, so that it's harder to over apply to help ensure a good experience with the product. Gift fancy carefully. So I love making fancy stuff, fancy ingredients, beautiful actives, expensive things. I found you have to be careful about who you give these to if you really want the products to be used. If you're giving from a place of just, I really want you to experience this and I don't care if you use it, then yeah, you do you. But if you have somebody in your life who, say, has never used a face cream in their life, if you give them a really nice one, are they gonna use it? Yeah, probably not. Or I also think back to, I remember when I first started making soap, everybody got soap around me for Christmas every year. And I gave my brother a lot of soap, and then visiting him years later and being in his bathroom and being like, oh, hey, that looks familiar. And looking at like the back of the shelf, like, oh, It's a bunch of like 5-year-old soap I made, and he just doesn't use bar soap. So I've stopped giving him bar soap because he just, he doesn't use it. Oh, and I will say also, if you make beautiful soaps, impress upon your friends and family that you really want them to use them, because I also find beautiful soaps that I've made on friends' shelves, and they're just like, well, they're just too pretty to use. And I was like, ma'am, I am a one-woman soap making factory. Well, not so much soap anymore, but like DIY making like, please use the stuff so that I can give you more stuff, because a never-ending supply, effectively. Please use it. It's not too pretty to use. Please use it. And then yes, also thinking, if you have somebody who's very particular about their skincare routine, they've really refined it and chosen things that they absolutely love, that they've been very careful about it, they might not want to swap out a component of their skincare routine either. So a thing to think about at least. Travel friendliness. So, if you need to mail it, is it going to do well in that situation? So obviously you want to package it accordingly to prevent like breakage and damage, but it's not going to solve all challenges. One of the big ones is, what temperature are delivery trucks? And is it going to freeze solid somewhere in the trip? Or if you're down under, is it going to be sitting in like a 40-degree, 50 degrees Celsius unair conditioned delivery truck and then completely liquefy? Because that's a major bummer, right? When you get a product and it's just kind of been ruined in transit. You never even got to experience it in its prime conditioning. And if you have a product that was solid and then it liquefies in transit, the container you chose might not have been designed to accommodate a liquid product, and then you could have leaking, and then that's... And then also remember, things that are really heavy can be very expensive to mail, so that. Personal considerations, of course, if somebody's vegan or vegetarian, making sure that you are abiding by that. Or if they have allergies, don't give this sweet almond oil lip balm to somebody with a lip allergy. Safe seasonal spice. This is kind of an essential oil PSA. A lot of the really Christmassy spice essential oils like cinnamon bark and clove bud have really low safe usage levels. So be very careful if you are formulating with those. Make sure you're familiarizing yourself with those safe usage levels for the type of product you are making. And in a lot of cases, using a fragrance oil is a safer, easier route to get that Christmas spiciness in a way that's not going to cause skin irritation. And then lastly, it's like label considerately, which is something that we have talked about a bit already. So make sure you label the product so people know what it is, and include instructions so they know how to use it. It's a little embarrassing, the number of phone calls I've had from my mom in like February, which is basically, "Hi Marie, can you please walk me through everything you gave me for Christmas this year, because I don't know what to do with any of it." And I was like, my bad, I really should have put labels on those things. So yeah, I also recommend avoiding any situations where the product would require kind of special treatment different to a product that the recipient might be familiar with from a store. So an example of that is if you've made an anhydrous self-emulsifying scrub and you haven't included a preservative because if it stays dry throughout its life, it doesn't need one. Don't rely on a label for this for your friends and family. I would include a preservative saying, hey, I know you've never experienced anything spoiling on you in the realm of skincare and cosmetics, but this can and will if you take it into the shower with you. So make sure you portion it out into a separate plastic cup and then carry that in and then use that up. And if there's any leftover, then you have to throw it away. That's probably not going to fly, and it's probably not going to be really retained on Christmas morning. So just put a preservative in it for that sort of thing. Also recommend for products that can melt, like body butters, body butter bars, if they're less than or too warm. Think about kind of who you're giving it to, and if they will remember to keep it cool enough, or maybe if like they keep their house really, really warm, maybe that's not for them. Because yeah, if it melts, then that's a major bummer. And as we did before, it's a good idea to cover your labels with a bit of packing tape so that they don't fade and smudge into oblivion. All right, let's check on our lip balm here. All right. That is definitely not melted yet. I think we will kind of reassemble or reorder a little bit of what we're doing today, and we'll hop to a bit of Q&A before we cycle back and finish this lip balm. So I'm just going to grab a seat and switch to our Q&A setup, and we can do some Q&A until we have a liquidy lip balm. All right. Okay, I am ready for questions. If you want to drop those in the chat. Okay. The chat that I'm seeing is clearly very old. Oh, here we go. Jessica, can you do a lesson on hair perfume? Huh, interesting idea. I would probably start with the light argan oil like hair mist that I shared. Oh gosh, 2021, I think that was. 2022? Somewhat recently, 2021, I think. And then you can put different fragrance oils and essential oils in there. Make sure you're following safe IFRA guidelines for that. Oh, a really good tip from 9 Design, having a readable font size on labels is also kind. Yes, especially if you are giving this to like a parent who has perhaps not as young of eyes as you do, almost guaranteed with how parenting works. You want to make sure that, yeah, people can read your labels. Can I leave the xanthan gum out of your Winter Wonderland lotion? Yeah, you can. It's not a make or break, but I do find it helps kind of give it a little bit of a different type of body and slip that I do really like. And xanthan gum is a very useful ingredient, so it's worth investing in. The softer, clear kind, significantly preferred to the like regular kind. If you don't have it. But obviously, you know, I know we're coming up to Christmas, so we're just going like, well, what can I do right now? And yes, you can leave it out, just replace it with a bit more water. Melissa has asked, how did you get started in formulating? I'll grab a quick drink here. I've always been really, really curious about how things work and why things work. Pretty early memories about like trying to figure out how to sew stuffed animals and how to cook and bake. So when I got really into baking and cooking when I was in high school, and then I got more interested in skincare. And see, the beautiful thing about DIY skincare is that you don't have a sky-high grocery bill every month and end up creating a ton of food that is hard to consume or store. I mean, you spend money in other places and have other things that are hard to consume and store, but typically more shelf-stable than like bread, for instance. So it spiraled out of a love of baking and cooking and really wanting to understand how things worked and why they worked. And this has just been the most wonderful decade-plus long rabbit hole to fall down. It's great. From Susan, I made my family ladies complete skincare products for morning and nighttime routine. 8 different products with actives, and for my granddaughters, I made products as well. That is so lovely. I love hearing about how people share their creations with their friends and family. And one of my favorites is when people like make stuff with their kids. Like, yes, get them into science. Yeah. I just bought rose wax for one of your recipes. It's so lovely. Where can I use it to sub for others? I didn't find it in your ingredients encyclopedia. Yeah, I think there's a slight mention of it in an FAQ about waxes. So rose wax and a lot of these other floral waxes, they're not very waxy. They have a consistency much closer to that of like shea butter or a soft butter. And they're very fragrant. So you typically only need like 1% or less of them. So I would typically swap out, if you have a soft butter in the formulation, swap out like 0.5% to 1% of that, or if you have a liquid oil there. And then you do need an oil phase to incorporate these waxes because they're waxy and soft solids. But yeah, you can use them in all kinds of like lotions and balms, and they're really, really lovely. How do you get the bubbles out of a cream after stick blending? So the best approach is to not put them in there in the first place. So you want to stop blending before the cream is thick enough to really support bubbles. Because if the cream is really thick and has bubbles in it, you're not getting those bubbles out. They're just gonna stay there forever. Well, maybe not forever. Like they will eventually potentially settle out depending on the viscosity of the cream. But yeah, if you've whipped a lot of air into something, you're probably not going to get you're not going to get a great result getting those air bubbles out. I've got some lotions in here that I experimented with, like really working lots of air into them, and they still are kind of weird and frothy, and they're months old. So yeah, just try to avoid putting air in there in the first place, but typically some air bubbles are pretty inevitable. Is Optifin Plus the best preservative for shampoos and conditioners? It depends. It's a pretty good option for a lot of them. Yeah, I would just say it depends. I do like it. As long as you make the pH happy with it and you're not having any solubilizing issues, but you shouldn't with the phenoxyethanol with a high surfactant load for a shampoo or with an emulsifier for the conditioner. I wouldn't say it's like the best, but it's a good option and I would happily use it. Not to say that there is a best option. It's a good option, and yeah. Melissa's, would you say you are self-taught? Was there any schooling involved? I do have 2 diplomas from Formula Botanica, a diploma in organic skincare formulation and a diploma in organic hair care formulation. So I'm not entirely self-taught, but I am also a lot self-taught. Like I'd been formulating for probably 5 years before I studied with Formula Botanica, and I've definitely like know a lot of things now that I didn't learn from Formula Botanica, but they were a really good starting point. Like there's just so much to know about formulating that you're never going to learn all of it in one course. So much of it is from just experiments, and trying things. Kaya Beauty just received my book and can't wait to start formulating. Well, thank you so much for buying my book. I really, really appreciate it. My xanthan gum was not clear or soft, and it's staying gloopy and not melting in the water phase. You'll want to pre-disperse xanthan gum, especially if it's regular xanthan gum, in like a glycerin or butylene glycol or propylene glycol, propanediol 1,3, some sort of non-water liquid thing to help it mix in. But xanthan gum is pretty, like regular xanthan gum is kind of gloopy and a little bit snotty. So yeah, it can take a while, but that is pretty characteristic of it. It's why I like the clear and soft stuff a lot better. Ooh, what do I do with bad batches? Oh, this is a good question. Also, let's check and see how our lip balm is doing. It's getting there. It's just the wax now. Everything else is melted. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. So yeah, when you make stuff, you will inevitably make stuff that's not great, especially if you're trying things that are new. So a lot of them I keep. I label them and I keep them and I just wait and see what happens. They can be a really good, like, who knows, maybe waiting will fix the thing you hated about them. Or maybe it just ends up being a test to see if the preservative holds in that batch. If it's really, truly terrible, I will just throw it away. Or depending on what's in it, I can compost some stuff too, which is really, really nice. Reduce wastage there. I have a whole closet full of just stuff I'm watching and keeping an eye on. Yeah, this hobby can take up a lot of space. Like, I don't know, some of the shampoo bars I made this summer that were way too soft, I've just kind of kept them and been keeping an eye on them, and some of them have actually kind of improved. Now, I'm not stoked about having a shampoo bar that needs to age for like 8 months before you want to use it, but it's just neat to know, right? Kelly, the female Rottweiler, can you share a non-transfer lipstick formula? Okay, partially giggling because a few years ago for April Fool's, I did a dog lipstick formula. They called it like lipstick for Lottie, and a surprising number of people fell for it. And I did at least have one person send me an email and be like, if you're starting to do formulating to make makeup for dogs, like I'm unsubscribing because I don't have a dog. And it was very funny. I'm working on one now. I'm on version 34. I think I'm getting close. I've been working on this for over 2 years. I'm working on it. It's a challenge to make something that I really like. I've made things that are like pretty good, but I want it to be really good. Kelly, what is one time you messed up a formulation so badly that all you could do is laugh? Well, recently I made something that was working with some of the polyamides and experimenting and trying to make a clear lip balm, which I have done. It was in one of those teaser photos and it was very cool. Didn't work out this particular time. And I basically just made lip taffy, like neon pink lip glue. And I decided that I was gonna try to save it and package it and see if maybe that tackiness would make it nice and long lasting and moisturizing. And it was the most infuriating thing to try to get into a kind of packet. Oh my goodness, it was so messy and sticky and awful. So that was pretty funny, just kind of the texture of it and the, oh my gosh, that was pretty hilarious. I've also at least once in some of my recent memory grabbed soy wax instead of glycerol stearate and PEG 100 stearate, and I think I made the emulsion twice. I was like, what is going on? Why isn't this emulsifying? Before I realized that I hadn't put an emulsifier in it, and that was also kind of funny and sort of like a facepalm kind of way. Will you be making a face serum or hair serum in this live? No, we're already like an hour in, so no, it's just gonna be lip balm. But I do have formulations for all sorts of hair serums and face serums, hydrous and anhydrous, on my website and my YouTube channel for free. So lots of great options. But if, for something for like a last minute gift thing, a lot of, especially the hydrous ones, require ingredients that a lot of people might not have. So it didn't really fit the brief as a good last minute gift idea. Will I be doing an updated or new formulation makeup book? I have no plans for such a thing at this time. I don't have a coffee grinder for cosmetics and I can't get one at this time. Can I use a pestle and mortar for powders? I'm trying to make the airbrushing powder from your book. You can. It's definitely not as fast or as efficient, but I did start there kind of doing a mortar and pestle and then like actually using the back of a spoon to press it through a fine mesh sieve can have pretty decent results, but it sure is really, really time consuming trying to get your color blend down if you're kind of having to do 5 minutes of mixing for every tiny little color modification you make. Do you know what I can use for a good face scrub? I don't know how to make one and I've been trying. I've got a couple formulations on my website. I'm pretty sure they're in the face cleansers section, so check those out. There's a few powder to foam ones that I really like. Those are really neat. They kind of feel magical because they start as a powder and then they're like, oh my gosh, bubbles, hooray. And then there's also, I think it's called Winter Solstice Facial Polish. So this would have come out around this time of year, winter solstice. a few years ago, and I really like that one too. And it's kind of more of a cleansing balm, like a fatty base. It's got a little bit of an exfoliant kick to it, but you really don't need a lot of exfoliating for facial products. So instead of like, on the body, you would use maybe like sugar and salt. And so for the face, I'm typically using a sort of a coarse clay to get that level of exfoliating, so that it's exfoliating, but it's gentle. Do I have any additional certificates in regard to skincare? No, just the 2 forms of botanical ones. Ooh, we are almost there. We are almost fully liquefied. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Would you ever consider a colored brow wax or brow liner? There's one in my book, and I really, really like it. I think I called it Brow Wow. I had a lot of people test it, including a bunch of yoga teachers. This was it wasn't really intentional. I wasn't being like, "Hi, you look like a person that like does lots of activity in really warm rooms. Please test my makeup for me." But it ended up working out really, really well. And so I had a bunch of yoga teachers testing me. Like, it stayed on all day throughout like all the classes I taught. Yes, yeah, check that out. I think we're gonna switch back to finishing up this lip balm, and then I will take a few more questions later. Hydrate, hydrate. All right, pull up my notes again. All right, we have a melty lip balm. So one of our challenges with lip balm is that because of that high wax content, which is really necessary for creating a product that feels balmy and rich and stays on the mouth for a long time, if you just put kind of plain oils or butters on your mouth, I mean, like, you can just try it, but it just sort of feels like you have an oily mouth, which I don't love. So we need to get it in its tins or its tubes pretty quickly. So I do recommend tubes for gifting, especially unless you know somebody really, really prefers a tin. I just use tube lip balm so much more often because I don't feel like I have to have clean hands to use it. If I'm out in public and I've like been on a bus or something, I don't want to stick my finger in, ew. So lip balm tubes. You can buy these on Amazon typically pretty easily as well. Any good DIY supplier will have them. I buy them like 100 at a time. I've bundled them together with some rubber bands to kind of make them easier to keep together. Now, if we were making the version of this that had essential oil in it, you would take it off the heat, pop it on your scale, weigh in those ingredients, quickly stir and pour. Since we're not doing that, we can just pour pretty quickly. For this batch size, it'll fill about 11 tubes, so I put 12 here just in case. Moment of truth. You want to dry off the outside of the cup to make sure that you don't get any water in the product. And let's go. Now, because this has been in a water bath, the glass cup is relatively warm, which is helping it not solidify as much up the glass and blocking the pouring spout. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And yeah, I really don't recommend using metal for this or plastic. It just cools down so much faster than glass, or silicone for that matter. It's really, really, really stressful. I'm actually gonna put, there's like probably one tube's worth. Yep, 1 tube's worth of lip balm left in here. But it's starting to solidify, so I'm just kind of scraping it off my spatula here, kind of knocking that back down, and we're gonna pop that back on the heat, and it should melt again quite quickly, but these will start setting up real fast thanks to that high wax content. And then a note, these are my favorite spatulas. These ones, check out the entry for them in the Humble Bee and Me encyclopedia. I've got a link for these ones with the wooden handle. You can also buy a similar spatula from Norpro. The tip of the blade's not quite as flexible as these ones, so I do tend to prefer these. And the little bee, I had a little branding iron made with my logo on it, so I just like hand branded these with a little bee. All right, that's liquid again. Let's get this in there. All right, well, that last tube's not quite full. Definitely a little bit of spillage there, so call it a 10.5 tube batch if you're human. So now we got to clean this out. You do not want to just take something like this and stick it right in your sink and try to wash it out with dish detergent and a sponge. You know, you don't want to be sending things that are liquid when warm but solid when cold down your drain, like bacon fat or lip balm. Very bad for your pipes. So the first step, I've just got a roll of paper towels off to the side here, so that's what I'm grabbing. The first step is getting as much of the product out of there as possible, and that's where those spatulas come in really handy. And then after that, while things are still warm, we're gonna use a bit of paper towel to wipe things down as much as possible. We're trying to get this practically completely clean. You can compost this, or at least you can in Calgary with our city compost. You know, if you have a city compost, check with them, but I can compost this here, which is fabulous. And then if you have your own compost, you could compost this too, because it's really just like paper and then a bunch of like naturally occurring fats and butters and a little bit of wax. So that's great. And now this is basically clean, and you can clean that out with some nice dish detergent. I like Dawn or Axion from pick that mine up in South America, or in Calgary, you can get it at the Unimarket. And it's fantastic. It's like a concentrated solid dishwashing paste, and it's amazing. And I also have a recipe on my website for a solid dishwashing like lemon paste, which is also fabulous. Oh my gosh. So there, that makes cleaning lip balm up so much easier. Okay, now we can hop back to the Q&A. I'm gonna grab my seat again. Right. Very tippy, come on. All right. It's a very topical question from Tara. It does not sound ridiculous. It is a legitimate question. How do you calculate for the amount of lip balm that goes into the tube? These lip balm tubes hold 4.5 grams of product, roughly. I think that 4.5 grams is probably for, I think it's a volume measurement, so having it as a weight, it's like, well, what the weight of what? But generally, assuming that it holds 4.5 grams of lip balm, works quite well. So I know this is a 50-gram batch, so 4.5 fits into 50 just over 11 times. Yeah, somewhere around there. I did the math earlier. And so yeah, I just divided 50 by 4.5, and then I was like, that many plus 1, just to be extra sure. Can I use a flavor oil in the lip balm instead of an essential oil? If so, do you have a recommendation for the amount of flavor oil to add? Yes, you can. I think 0.5% would probably still be fine. And then yeah, just make sure if you are using the unrefined, like the cocoa, coconut, honey setup, choose something that's gonna be nice with that. Or if you don't think it'll be nice, use refined versions of those. Or you can kind of mix and match. Like if you had a coconut flavor oil, Okay, that's maybe a little bit close. If you like vanilla, vanilla would be great. If you had like pineapple, say, you could do like a pineapple coconut and choose refined beeswax and refined cocoa butter, but keep the virgin coconut oil, and then you have like a coconut pineapple lip balm, and that would be really, really lovely. And then just kind of a side note, flavor oils are different from fragrance oils. So fragrance oils are not okay for use in lip products. Well, flavor oils are. So don't put a fragrance oil in a lip balm, but you can put a flavor oil in a lip balm. There are far fewer flavor oils out there than fragrance oils, which is kind of a bummer, but c'est la vie. How do you keep dust particles out of your DIYs? Well, generally you want to make sure that the room that you're working in is pretty clear. I cover things when they're being left for a period of time. Like I weighed these ingredients out last night and I had all those little dishes covered with watch glasses, which you might have seen in the start off to the side so that nothing got in there. Yeah, I don't manufacture for sale though, so the level of kind of care and concern that you would have for selling is just really not something I'm super familiar with. Like obviously I'm not trying to do things really gross, but I don't sell. So it's just an extra level of consideration for like very large batches, for instance. I don't have that experience. My BT-50 won't stay melted in my oil phase. Yeah, BT-50 really doesn't like staying melted. I've had pretty good success combining, like you heat the water phase, you heat your phases, and then you kind of combine them over the heat and have that all together. And then once you have that sort of larger mass, that can help rather than pouring them together off the heat. Making sure the water phase is really quite hot can also help with that. But yeah, this is kind of a pain in the backside. Yep. Having the hot plate is also helpful because you can often get it hotter than you can with a water bath, but you gotta be careful not to kind of scorch it because then the fishy stink can really amplify. Hey, there we go. Have you created a cool tuned face contour? Well, I know there's contour in my book and there's kind of instructions on how to make your own and adjust it for your skin tone. So I don't think I've done anything that's specifically like, here's my formula for this, but there's definitely guidelines to do all of that in my book. When you make a lotion in a jar, when do you put the lid on after pouring? Typically I make sure that, like, it would be pretty quickly because I let the formula cool in the beaker. You don't want it to be condensing from it still being warm in the jar. So if it was still quite warm, you would want to let it cool before you put the lid on so that it's not condensing. It's not the end of the world if it does condense a little bit, but we do generally want to avoid that. Someone asked about how to make soap more moisturizing. So if we're talking traditional soap, like a cold process or a hot process soap made with sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, we've got a pretty fundamental, unsolvable challenge there, in that these products have very high pHs. And that very high pH damages our acid mantle, like the moisture barrier on our skin, every time we use that product. And a damaged moisture barrier increases transepidermal water loss and kind of decreases your skin's ability to sort of self-regulate its moisture levels. So you can try things like a higher superfat, but fundamentally you are using bar soap. You're using something that has a very, very high surfactant content, with a pH that is high enough to damage your acid mantle. So it's hard, yeah, physiologically it's going to be pretty hard on the skin. And also it's a cleanser, like that's designed to pull fat, like to emulsify fat and send it down the drain. So it's again, it's like kind of the opposite of moisturizing, taking fat off the skin and sebum off the skin and rinsing it down the drain. So yeah, it's a little easier with Syndet products because you have a lot more control over how concentrated they are. You can choose gentler surfactants. You can make the pH better suited. Like you can make the pH acidic. It is impossible to make acidic soap. It stops being soap and just falls apart. On a small level and on a big level, I did try to make like a very, I tried to lower the pH of a bar made with sodium stearate once, and it was just like gooey, sticky mush. So yeah, sorry, it's probably not that helpful. Can make a shampoo bar for Indian hair. I don't, like I say, I don't have Indian hair, so I really do not feel like I can speak to this. Nobody needs me saying, hi, I made this shampoo bar for Indian hair. That's not a thing the world needs. So what I would recommend, like, since this is, presumably it's your hair, right? It's your needs. I would recommend checking out my shampoo bar workshop. So I teach you how to formulate your very own shampoo bars and teach you how to adjust them to what your hair needs. So that's the thing, saying like Indian hair is probably a little bit like saying like Caucasian hair, and that like there's got to be a lot of variability in there, right? So yeah, I would recommend checking out my shampoo bar workshop so that you can make something that's exactly what you want and exactly what your hair needs. Roberta. So in the past, I've said to only emulsify with the hand mixture for no more than 90 seconds. If you mix longer, it won't make the top of your lotion bubbly. It kind of depends on the formulation. If you're making like a very thin body milk, something that's never going to be viscous enough to trap air bubbles, you can blend a lot longer with some level of impunity. But if it is going to get thicker, and it will be thick enough to suspend air bubbles, then you will want to kind of stop sooner rather than later. And like I've been dropping it back even less than like 90 seconds, like 30 to 40 seconds, and that has been proving to be perfectly fine too. But yeah, generally, yeah, you can have a kind of a bubblier top of your lotion. You can get more bubbles throughout the lotion, and it can also make the lotion quite frothy and can make soaping worse, I've found. So it depends kind of on the formulation, but the thicker it is, kind of the quicker you'll usually need to stop blending. How long does it take for shea butter to clump in a wax mix if it is cooled properly? Kind of depends, unfortunately. Then I know this is such an annoying answer. It depends how the product is stored. It depends on the formulation. Like if the product is exposed to quite a few heat fluctuations, like temperature fluctuations, like say somebody's carrying it around in their pocket, that like little bit of like warm up to body temperature and then cool back down to room temperature, that can cause it to happen pretty quickly. Or if it's like living in a bathroom and it warms up every time somebody takes a shower and then cools down, then that can accelerate that. Some butters are more prone to going grainy than others. Some formulations are just more prone to going grainy than others. Yeah, there's no real good answer to this, unfortunately, but it's not guaranteed to happen. It doesn't have to happen, but if it's going to happen, yeah, yeah, it depends. There's a pain in the bum. Ooh, Carol, some kind words for my shampoo bar workshop. Says she highly recommends it. All right, I think I'm just gonna take a couple more questions, and then I actually have a Christmas cookie swap to go to, and I got a great big tub of ginger cookies to go and trade for other goodies. Can I create Gizu's hair serum or Nux's oil? I think I've heard of Gizu. I think I actually looked at that when I was looking at Sephora for these like single ingredient oils. I'll keep it in mind, and it's also worth suggesting for a patron live ingredient analysis, or if you are like an office hours tier patron, like come to office hours, especially for these simpler products. Usually these oils are simpler products. We can often break them down in office hours fairly effectively, because it's often, you know, maybe like a 10-minute kind of undertaking. And then we can also get input from anybody else who shows up and maybe has experience with some of the ingredients that I might not have experience with. So yeah, those are really fun. We do often sometimes kind of analyze some products in office hours. Thank you very much, Constance. I'm really glad you liked it. I had so much fun doing that. I really want to do more, and I would love to hear what you guys would like to see, like a really in-depth workshop on, because it was just such an absolute blast. Okay, I think I'm gonna hop over to just packaging these up, and then we're done. All right. Please don't fall over. So yeah, these are still a little bit warm, but they are solid. Hooray. So, lid time. Keep an eye on some of these questions while I do this. The best ingredient for conditioning that I can use in shampoo. The really easy ones are polyquats. Polyquaternium 7, polyquaternium 10 are pretty common. Cationic guar gum is also pretty common. They're water soluble, all of those, so they're really quite easy to incorporate, and they work well with anionic ingredients, which are typically the surfactants we use in shampoos are anionic or negatively charged. And so if you're throwing in something cationic, positively charged, that can cause problems, but it depends on the ingredient. And so, yeah, you'll see a lot of like polyquaterniums in things that are called like 2-in-1 shampoos. I made your conditioning rosewater hair mist and used Poly 7, sodium lactate, Optifin Plus, Olivin 300, fizzled light carbonation. Yeah, I suspect this is because you used Optifin Plus, which has quite a lot of phenoxyethanol in it, which is not water soluble. So I actually, somebody at the HSCG conference in Kansas this year showed me a video where they were like, I made this thing and it was like, look at it. And you could see it bubbling. And it was the Optifin Plus, not mixing into the product. I'm just wiping these down because, you know, they do have a little bit of like lip balm on the outside of them. I want to know how to dupe the Clean It Zero cleansing balm. If you're interested in duping, I really do recommend becoming a patron at the exclusive videos tier, because every month when we break down those ingredient lists, you'll really see how I think through it, how I do the research, how I think about kind of substituting things. It really is it's a bit of a complex undertaking. It's a skill, right? Like, that relies on having a fairly large amount of knowledge, or at least a good research, like a good ability to research. So yeah, you might enjoy watching some of those back and sort of seeing how I think through things and how I do things. Would I do a shower gel live? Oh, I like that idea. Shower gel would be, I think, a pretty live compatible product as well. I was looking in your encyclopedia and I can't find trimethylglycine, natural betaine. Is it similar to betaine? I believe it is betaine. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it is. Where's your Patreon link? It's in the description box below, but I'm also just Marie Rama on Patreon, so patreon.com/Marie Rama. But yeah, there's a bunch of Christmas gifts. And if you were gonna buy that, buy that lip balm, what, if we say $5 a tube, that's like $50 worth of lip balm. So, sweet. All right. Okay. I'm afraid I am pressed for time, so I do have to sign off. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This replay, I'm going to leave it up until Christmas Eve, so you can certainly rewatch it. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support this year. Thank you for your support, especially as I've been taking a bit of time kind of stepping back to work on other things. It's been very, very rejuvenating. I feel a lot happier than I did 3 months ago. It's been really, really nice. All right. Best of luck with the last of your Christmas gifting DIY obligations. Let me know if you have any workshop ideas or anything that you'd love to see me make live. And yeah, I'm gonna go eat tasty cookies with some lovely friends. I hope you have a great rest of your day.